Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live on Monday, the 1st of February, also known as the start of Black History Month. Some of us live Black History Month every day of the year. And I think that's all of us here on this call tonight. So what we want to do tonight is have a great conversation around the power of economics and self-reliance within our community. So before we get started, we have our normal kind of housekeeping things that we do here at Black Man Lab, one of which is to talk about where we come from and what got us here. So with that, I'm going to bring on my brother, Melvin Davis, to kind of just kick us off.
What's up? Brother Jared isn't with us today?
No, he's in there.
I'm right here, bro.
He's in there.
Right, well, you know what I'm going to do, man. I'm going to pass it to the chief priest of Black Man Lab, that brother who comes with deeply rooted spirituality. I was looking at something the other day, and it said, I could see your religion. And it was just really, it was a deep, I thought it was a very profound statement, you know, in how you move, you know. And so Jared is one of those brothers that
definitely,
you know, no matter what we call God, the brother's trying to be reflective of that source of light. So, Brother Jared, you want to bring in the energy sources of the ancestors?
I say. Thank you, brothers. Thank you, brother, for joining us today. We always like to call on our ancestors before our Africans come together. We love bringing our ancestors together. And, 10,000 ancestors made each and one of us. And so we think that's a powerful thing. So in our hearts and mind, we want to lock in those ancestors who did the great works, who came before us, those ancient ancestors of Kemet, those great ancestors who across the Middle Passage, those great ancestors that endured in order for us to live. Let's lock them in our hearts and minds at this time. And everybody raise your fist, and on 3, say Ashe. 1, 2, 3. Ashe. And now just think about those ancestors, those 10,000 ancestors that it took to create you. Just think about them in your own bloodline, those who came before you, and lock them into your heart and mind. Just think about them. And everybody raise your fist. And on 3, say Ashe 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you, brother.
All right, Brother Jared, thank you so much, man. It's so important that we have our ancestors in this space so that we are able to take in information and utilize it for the good of our communities. With that, I want to bring on my brother, Joe Barker, to help us get centered a little further so that we can really get into this conversation. Brother Joe.
Good evening, brothers. And can you guys hear me okay? I'm trying to be in a place with some better internet tonight and change rooms, see if that's any better. Y'all hear me okay?
We can hear you, bro.
All right. Well, I just, I want to get us centered, but I want to remind everybody, those of us that are here and those that are listening, why we do this. When we were in space together, when we were able to, be around one another, Molly and Marty would do a really powerful thing at the beginning, and they would just ask any brothers who needed to be loved up on, just had a rough week, had a rough day, had a great week, had a great day, whatever the case may be, just needed something a little extra, just, to come forward. And when those brothers would come forward, they would just ask the community to just, lay hands on them, give them a hug, dap them up, just show them that we're here for them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was just really powerful for me to see brothers doing that, to just see the narrative that's on the media so much, but to see how we all support one another, have one another's back in that space. So here in this small space that we have here, one thing we want to do is we just want to recognize the challenges that we all are having in some of the different spaces that we're in. Again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, if you had a great week, we celebrate you. We celebrate with you. We're glad you're here with us. If you had a tough one, we're here for you. We're in space with you, elbow to elbow, heart to heart. We're still there. And so in that, we want to just bring ourselves centered to be amongst one another in a solace and peace to begin this discussion. So we want to take a couple of deep breaths, and then we're going to exhale. And as we inhale, we're going to inhale all of the good that the brothers are giving one another, all of the love and the admiration that we have for one another. And what we're exhaling and letting out is all the toughness, all the hate, all the things that we want to just let go and just release that burden off of us. So with that, we're going to take a couple of deep breaths and get started with the discussion. So when I count to 3, let's take a deep breath, inhaling. 1, 2, 3. Now exhale that out. Exhale all of that pressure, all of that stress, all of that. And one more time, let's breathe in all the love we have for one another and the support we give one another. So inhale and exhale. And exhale all that stress out. And let's have a great conversation this evening. Thank you for being with us here.
Thanks again so much, Joe. Appreciate that. And like you said, it's so important that we are in a mental space. So often there's so much that goes on in our world. It gets in the way of us being able to take in information. And that's what we want to be able to do tonight. And we want our audience to be able to do as well. With that, I want to just introduce or have him introduce himself. One of our brothers is part of our panel tonight. We'll have some other brothers on here as well. But first up, I want my brother Kedrick, who I've known for a long time. Mowley is known even longer. But want to have Kedrick introduce himself. Brother Kedrick.
Thank you, brother. Good evening, everyone. Surprised to find myself here, but I think the ancestors are calling today. As of an hour and 42 minutes ago, I have permanently left corporate America. Woo. And I say that.
Wait, hold on, brother. Hold on.
Now, let's celebrate that. Come on now. Don't rush past that, brother.
Thank you.
Represent.
So, it was a long time coming, but I had permanently left, and I have been working with 3 other brothers and 2 brothers and a sister on a startup for a year and a half, and we're going to launch March 14th, our soft launch, and we should be in full operations by the end of April, which is business number 1. Business number 2 will be a logistics firm. North Star Logistics, North Star, Noir being French for black, so that's tied to Garvey's Black Star Line concepts, which I've been a Garveyite for a long time, and one of my 19-year-old sons' middle names is Garvey, just in case. If I didn't fulfill it, I was hoping he would.
Salute.
And then also looking this spring, we need to finalize it to do some business in Liberia. So actually starting a transportation hub in a growing part of Liberia that doesn't really have that. And I'm doing that with some brothers I've known for a very long time. And so with this launch coming up March 14th, it was time to leave corporate America so that somebody could be the face of this
Right.
venture, and that will be me. And to really get out front with the podcast and the this and the that. So just without going on much longer, long time, I've known Mowley 30 years. So I used to live in the Atlanta area back when I was in the Navy. I was stationed there, and have taught business, have mentored people, have worked with business owners, and have invested in real estate for almost 30 years, but never really put my name on a shingle in this way. So looking forward to the discussion, and thank you for having me as the rookie entrepreneur with the gray beard.
Hey man, you mentioned the great honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, And I think it is most fitting that we lift him up, read one of his quotes, one of his many profound quotes. This one is on economics. A race that is solely dependent upon another for its economic existence sooner or later dies. So let's let that rock out. As a Garveyite, would you share just some of the tenets and principles? Because people tend to think that history has no impact on where we are today or on what our future holds. And it's really an absurd concept, right? I mean, it makes no sense when you think about it. It's like what I did yesterday, what I ate, what I drank, especially the drinking part, what I took in my body yesterday can impact, how I'm feeling today. And so the idea that our history in some way is disconnected from the now and the future is something that is typically sold to us so that we can forget about it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. But here you are quoting a brother who has been an ancestor for, longer than you've been alive. Yet his principles are guiding and informing decisions that you're making about building a business and institutions that, prayerfully your son and our children will ultimately inherit. Talk a little bit about making that connection of the history and what you're doing and why you're doing it.
So I think one of the things, not so much a tenet, but one of the things that Garvey did for us, one of his quotes, one of his frequent quotes is very short. What man has done, man can do, right? And that is that connectivity, but that you have to be connected to the history to remember that you did it. That you did it long before. When you think, now Garvey died in 1940, so when you think about the period of his life, very short, 1887 to 1940. But when you think about that period of his life and what is happening in 1887 is everyone's really just emerging, whether you're in the islands or whether you're in the United States, wherever you are, South America, everyone is at some stage, primarily Black folk, of emerging from chattel slavery into the new version that still is out here in these streets. Right. And so that idea of remembering who we were, which, some people didn't like the majesty. You've seen the pictures of them, dressed as a president, an emperor, whatever it might be. Some people didn't understand the majesty, but he was reclaiming that the glorious aspects of African history and saying, you know what, we're going to create our Africa now for Africans here and abroad, right? We're going to recreate this world in our image and for us now. And what Garvey was really big on was about enterprise. He was really big on a knowledge of self, and he had this confidence. He was cocky, borderline arrogant, right? He knew that, coming from a small island of Jamaica at the time he did, who else has influenced the world? Who else touched people on 6 continents? Garvey's world. People were reading it everywhere. Australia. Yes, Australia. Not to mention Africa, North America, South America, everywhere except maybe somebody tell me in Antarctica, if there was a brother in Antarctica, he might have got a copy 100 years ago too, right? If he was there. So to me, the tenets of, as we look at his organization, UNIA, of course, not nearly what it was in its heyday, but we can see the tenets of Garveyism rather than expressing it explicitly. We can see it in the Nation of Islam. You can see it in the Final Call, which Malcolm X, the son of a Garveyite, created when he created Muhammad Speaks. So Final Call comes from Muhammad Speaks, which comes from Malcolm X, and under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so when you see them selling those bean pies, when you see the different, when you used to get the various restaurants in the 70s when I was growing up, right? You could go get your fried whiting in Newark, New Jersey. You get your bean pie, you get your paper. I have personally sold Muhammad Speaks on behalf of my brothers and my mother's brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam. They were 35 cents in the mid 70s. We sold them. You turned in the quarter to the nation and you could keep the dime for your effort. So I think that part of the majestic image or vision of I am going to create a ship line. I'm going to engage brothers and sisters to buy shares in a Black Star Line and buy our own ships so that we can either move back and forth, whether as people repatriating to Africa or moving material. And of course, there was some crookedness involved, because you're dealing with the other in order to do that. But in the end, I think Garvey created a vision for us that says do for self, which we definitely hear in the Nation of Islam. I think that comes directly from Garvey. Do for self, build organizations, because he built the largest one. He was filling up Madison Square Garden. People couldn't get in the garden over 100 years ago. 1919 convention, UNI convention. He's filling up and scaring the hell out of corporate America and everybody else in America, which then led to them coming after him, trumped up charges, and basically the start of J. Edgar Hoover's career, right? Because he went after Garvey, trumped up charges, mail fraud, and I could ramble on and on, but bottom line is Garvey really over 100 years ago, when Black people had little education, many of us could not read and write because it had been forbidden. We're really only in that second generation coming off of the plantation of chattel slavery. And this brother was bold enough to say that we can govern our own affairs. And so, and I think that extends to today with business, because, if you can't feed yourself, good luck. And good luck in expecting someone to perpetually feed your children. It's just not gonna happen.
Hey, Brother Kendrick, thank you for that. Brothers, let me say something for about 60 seconds from what he just said and what was so powerful. Marcus Garvey did something else too. The grassroots or the common person can buy shares in the stock market. And as a result of creating a collective wealth for the Black Star Line and creating all of that inspiration and hope for people, they changed the rules because they did not want that to ever occur again. And we just saw a new revolt this past week where you saw hedge fund billions of dollars based upon hedge funding that was redistributed to common people, which is another type of revolt. And you're going to see something else occur. They're going to change the rules because it's not supposed to go that way.
Precisely.
So Garvey helped us to look for methods and ways that serve redistribute wealth, collective wealth, in order to achieve certain goals. So I just, you just made me think of that, Brother Kendrick, and I appreciate what you just said, brother.
I'd like to build on what you just said to appreciate it, and shut me down if I'm going too long. But when you just reminded me when Garvey came to the States, right? He was looking for a couple of folks to possibly mentor him. One of them being Booker T. Washington. And sometimes I think that we don't appreciate his position in history because we got into this thing of, him and W.B. Du Bois, and, which way do you go? And that the assumption was that Booker T, was capitulating to white folks to always be the drawers of water or whatever you want to say. But he was really about enterprise and how many people came through Tuskegee that built their own businesses. And so Garvey was attracted to him. He was also interested in what was going on with the, NAACP. But one of the things he said was, and again, now the color consciousness in Jamaica and certain parts of the Caribbean is a little different than it is here. But he said, man, ain't nothing but the mulattoes running the stuff here. But NAACP, mulattoes and white folks, this cannot be for the best, for the greater good of the masses. And now that the NAACP's been around, 112 years, there's maybe something to be said about that. I'll just leave it at that in case any of y'all happen to be your local chapter president.
Hey.
So,
a member of the NAACP, so every organization has its role. It just depends on what.
Yes, sir.
Is. But I want to bring Brother Calvin Foster in. Brother Foster is very much what was beautiful about what Kedrick just raised is he talked about 3 or 4 different businesses that he is embarked upon, and Brother Foster is another entrepreneur, businessman who has a number of businesses that he has embarked upon, and I just would like for him to introduce himself and just talk about what has influenced him in this direction in terms of self-reliance and economic, the powernomics. Brother Foster, come on.
Hey, Brother Davis, how y'all brothers doing, man?
What's up, good brother?
Really good to be this afternoon to join you brothers. Just to witness the energy and the power that is moving through the group this afternoon. I apologize for my behest and being a little late here this afternoon, but definitely jumping at a good time and appreciating all the comments thus far and all the dialogue that goes around, it's going back and forth with us understanding our history. And that's a huge part of where our power comes from. I feel like we as African-American men are disadvantaged in this country because we don't always have a direct link to our lineage and our heritage and those dynasties and all of those accomplishments that came before us that we need to draw power, energy, and strength from. So, one of the things that I find unique about my situation, a little bit about me, I'm a Georgia native, grew up here in Southeast Georgia on a sharecropping farm, and joined the military, joined the Marine Corps for 20 years. But now I'm here in Atlanta, a little bit later on in life, and I'm able to really pull from those lessons that I learned early in life. And one of the things that so me and my wife, we have 2 or 3 businesses. I sell real estate. Doing well there. I'm converting my real estate business into land sales. We as Black people have to get away from the notion that all the money is in some type of building, holding some type of structure, and charging someone rent somewhere. And we think about real estate, we really don't talk about land. And what I'm learning here, I also bought a farm here recently, about 115 acres down near Macon, Georgia, is that land is really where there's no stock that appreciates like land. If I could really get into the economics of how much land is worth and how valuable it is and how much of a cash cow it is and how all of the government regulations from the USDA to the Forestry Commission, Department of Agriculture, this has been just a cash cow for so many people for so long, but we got pushed off the scene. We got pushed out of the business. Only recently here through George Bush started to attempt it, to work on it. And the Pigford case that came out of North Carolina, but 92% of all the Black farmers had been pushed out of the business. But now there's tons of free money that most Black people don't know about to try to get us back into the business. So my theory, man, is this, and me being proud military, I think sort of different than I do a lot of brothers. I'm gonna put a scenario out there. I met a brother on Highway 78 coming from Snellville, coming around Stone Mountain the other day. This brother had obviously had a flat tire. I could see that he had some fraternity symbols on it, on the back of his car, but I'll leave that alone for now. I don't want to start none of that. But the brother was broke down, so I pulled over. So the problem was the brother had a flat tire. I said, okay, bro, obviously you got a flat tire. You must not have a spare. You can jump in my truck and we'll go find him. He's like, oh, I got a spare. The brother did not know how to change a tire, man. Didn't know how to change a tire. So my question to the brothers, man, is this. What happens one day when you wake up and your money is worth nothing? How prepared are you to live off the grid if you needed to? Are you able to sustain yourself? And one of the things that really keyed me into the vulnerability that we as Black men, a lot of us have, was a few years ago when we had that gas shortage, when the Alabama pipeline or whatever broke or whatever, and we didn't really have gas in Atlanta. I looked at my wife then, man, I said, we sitting ducks. What happens like we're in now when the grocery stores run out of food? What kind of plan do you have to really sustain yourself? You may be great at business, and I've done well there, but I'm also looking at it from an A&M agriculture and managerial type standpoint. That technical side that we're sort of getting away from, that hand using side that we're getting away from. Being able to defend yourself, being able to defend your family. All the money in the world ain't gonna help you if the crap hits the fan. So can you defend yourself? I grow food here. One of the things we do with sustainability, we grow food. Man, I grew thousands of pounds of food on this land. I can grow it on 100 acres. I grew enough to sustain us on a half an acre. You name it, sweet potatoes, corn, tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, squash, peas, melons, peaches, pears, plums. If you could fit it in the ground, I grew it. So I'm trying to get brothers, man, and my part of sustainability is get brothers to also look at this from not such a hierarchy level of being at a pinnacle or the apex of your mental being, but as situations stress us, we find that in dire situations, we have to lower that hierarchy of needs into those basic levels of food, water, shelter, and survival. And I'm gonna tell you, brothers, there are thousands of other men that don't look like us that are prepared for that moment, that date, and that time. And I wonder, how well we would fare and how prepared we are. So part of my sustainability economics is to have enough money for my family. My wife and I, we run a thriving chiropractic business here in Atlanta. I sell a lot of real estate. I also have another full-time job. So we're about that. We're about that life. But I also want to take it into, we have to be more leveled and more grounded in those emergency situations. Everything when everything is great, we as Black men, we good. Well, what happens when everything is not so great? Then what we gonna do? So let me put that question out there. I'll turn it back over to you, Brother Davis.
Man, Brother Foster, we appreciate you, brother. You dropped a whole lot of history. I love this land, bro. I want my 40 acres. If I got to pay for it, we ready to pay for it because I want that land, bro. I'm with you. This land, one thing they is not making any more of.
You can't blow it up. You can't destroy it.
It's there.
And the thing about it is, man, I'm into this pine tree business. Man, you would not believe the free money, the free help that I have got. Man, it's been a cash cow for the other boys for so long. I got into this, man, and they have money for me to take care of the place. They got money for me to farm the place. They got money for me not to grow stuff so they can control the corn prices over in Asia. Man, it is just a melee. It's crazy how much money's out there.
That's important, man. So I just want our young people and the parents who are listening, just think about where we just went, right? We went from a brother Kedrick, he didn't mention it, but he's retired Navy. This brother he's talking about logistics business, a business in Liberia, the work he's doing around coaching. And then we come to our brother who he's been in the Marine Corps. He has multiple businesses, and then he's talking about agriculture and growing and sustainability. Now I want to bring in Brother Robert Bozeman, my friend and brother in the law, and he has really built a service-oriented business, which is a law firm, and it's based on certain business principles that he's believed in, and he's been able to create wealth for him, for his family, and for the families that are employed at the firm. So, Rob, we were just talking about what influenced you to become a business person, and what are some of those principles, and just introduce yourself in terms of the scope of the businesses that you're involved in.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for this invitation. I hate that I missed the beginning of it, but I had a church meeting that ran a little long, so I told Molly I'd be a little late. But let me just jump right into it. Let's just get right down to business. When I was 14, I had a neighbor who, his name is Ron Brown. And Mr. Brown, he owned a McDonald's that's on MLK, right there in the West End. And he owned the McDonald's that's at the corner of 14th Street and that Marietta, right by that IKEA, okay? And I remember talking to him one day. I was literally talking to his daughter, and I was in his driveway. He pulled up one day, and I told him I wanted to work for him. And so he invited me to come work for him at McDonald's. So I worked, that was my first job. I worked on the grill at McDonald's. Now, what's that have to do with being an entrepreneur? First, I was working for a Black man and a Black owner of 2 McDonald's here in Atlanta. And this was in the 80s. So that was quite unique. Well, I worked for him the summer, and at the end of the summer, you know how it is when you're young, you work and you get your best friend a job too. So you both can go to work and kick it and have fun. So I got my best friend a job. So we both worked for him on the grill. He would never let us work out front. Back then, that was only for the girls, and mostly pretty girls. So we all had to work on the grill. At the end of the summer, he told us that we had done such a good job that he wanted to take us somewhere. And we got in the car, he talked to our parents, and he took us to Hilton Head Island, the first time I had ever been to Hilton Head. And he took us to his condo at Hilton Head. And I would never forget being out in the water, and those waves were coming in. And he looked at both of us and he said, "Now, do you like how this feels? Do you like living like this? Well, if this is what you like, then let me tell you how you can, and I was thinking, man, I want this. This is nice. And he talked to us, then he had our attention. That's how he got our attention. And at that point, I was open to hear anything he had to say, because I clearly could see myself living the life like he was living. And so that was really where I think my entrepreneurial spirit was birthed. But going forward, what he told me was, you got to manage your debt. You got to make your money work for you. And you got to understand interest. Most specifically, he told me I had to understand compound interest. And what he meant, and I didn't really know what he meant by compound interest. I didn't have a credit card, but what he really, over the years, and we've kept in touch, and I still consider him my mentor. But over the years, what he talked to me about was the power of compound interest. And that compound interest can work with you or it can work against you. And you just got to decide, which way you want to allow it to work. So if you're hearing me right now, write down the term compound interest. If you don't do anything else, leave here and understand, go do some research and understand what I mean by compound interest, okay? Compound interest is what you have in a credit card, and it's the same thing as when you get your credit card statement and it says, well, if you pay this off in so many years, this is how much interest you pay. But what he was trying to explain to me was that the reverse is also true. If you save this amount and you can make it work at this rate, this is how much you'll gain. So compound interest, there's two sides to the coin. I won't go too deep into it, but he always wanted me to understand compound interest. The second thing he wanted me to understand was real estate. And I think I heard, I think that was Brother Foster when I came on talking about real estate. Of course, real estate is one of those things that typically appreciates in value. It's an appreciating asset. And so that was also always the second pillar. And then the third pillar was trying to have a job or a business or a career that could fund those other two areas, investing and real estate. So what I like to talk about is it's like a triangle. There are three components to how I've tried to build wealth. One is through my job and as an attorney with Attorney Davis. The second is through real estate. And the third is through investing and trying to create compound interest. Those are the three things. And now when I say investing, I'm not talking about GameStop, because I know that's hot right now. That's not what I mean. I mean compound interest, just trying to get a 5 to 8, if you're lucky, 10% return on your money. I'm not talking about 800% in 2 weeks. All right. So those are the three elements for me as far as building wealth. My job, maximizing the job, maximizing real estate, and maximizing investments in developing that compound interest. Now, the thing I'll say about those three, and I don't know how much time I have, Molly. You didn't tell me anything about time. So I don't know.
Oh, Rob, we'll cut you off when we have to, Rob. It's going right now, so go ahead.
I have no idea where I'm going here, but I'm just gonna go. So let's hit those three areas and then I'll shut up. Those three areas. The first one, the job. Okay. Wanted to start my own business. Of course, started with Attorney Davis. But even with that, let's talk about the job. The job is personal injury law. Now, that's not always what I've done as an attorney. But what I realized with personal injury is you can look at it today. Here we are in 2020. You can turn on the TV. I can turn it on right now. And you can't find many personal injury attorneys on TV that are Black. There are a few, but most of them that you see will be Ken Nugent, Montlick, John Foy, the Strong Arm, all of that kind of stuff. But all of their clients are Black. Probably 98% of those clients are Black. So the first thing is when we're identifying what's the best place that we can succeed as a business, okay? Well, the easiest thing is succeed with your own folks, with your own people, right? So one of the reasons we chose personal injury and criminal defense, but one of those is because that's where our people are. That's where we can think we can control the market and that we can compete. So we started a firm, we put it in South DeKalb, where our people are. Before we were in South DeKalb, everyone in South DeKalb would have to drive to Buckhead to go to Ken Nugent, or drive to downtown to go to somebody else. So we thought we would put our firm in our community and ask our community to simply choose us. And then we train our folks so that our community is getting the best services. They're not taking any shorts. Matter of fact, they're getting better product than you're gonna get from other folks outside of the community, okay? That has worked. It's really worked. We've never really had to, we've always had more business than we can handle, and we've always grown. So the firm over 15 years grew from 4 of us, now there are 20 of us, okay? So, and that's based on, and I would say 99%, would you agree, Molly? 99% of our client base are Black, right? So that's good for our business, but it also allows us to take positions in the community that we want to take. All we've got to do is be loyal to our constituency, and our constituency is us. So as long as we're speaking on behalf of us, we don't really have to care about what anybody else thinks about what we're saying, what positions we're taking. All we want to do is make sure that we are looking out for us. And then once we do that, they look out, you know, in return, they're looking back out for the firm. They're bringing their cousins, they're bringing whoever into the firm. And so that has been a great business model. But the model was based on who's doing business with our folks and why are we not doing business with our folks, right? We're not worrying about other folks in Buckhead, in Alpharetta, in Forsyth. Let's take back our block first. Once we take our block back, we'll worry about another person's block. But we're taking our block back, and you all, there's so much business on our block that you really don't have to think about another block. So that's the first component. The second component, investing, all right? Investing, looking at companies for the long haul, a Warren Buffett approach, companies that are going to be around. When you buy a stock, when I buy a stock, I don't intend to ever sell it. It doesn't mean I won't, but that's not my intention. I'm looking for companies that are going to be here for the long haul. I don't want to be in and out creating fees. I want a company that I'm going to buy and sit on and ride it all the way out and hopefully just pass it down to my heirs. Okay. So we're looking for that. We're looking for companies that are going to be here and that may pay a dividend, but that we can generate a 5 to 10% return on. Okay. So that's something we're doing. And then the last piece is real estate, because folks are always, because you have to be diversified, because people play games, as you all see this week. People play games with the stock market. You know, sometimes they're good games, sometimes they're bad games. Sometimes they're crashes, sometimes they're bubbles, sometimes everybody's making money. So there's nothing wrong with that, but we also want to diversify. And that real estate is one of those things that even when the stock market crashes, one of the things I realized back in 2008, when we had the financial crisis, is the stock market may have been down, but the real estate market was strong. People still have to live. People still have to rent. People still have to put a roof over their heads. So actually the real estate market, I thought, settled down during that period. Once, you know, there were a lot of foreclosures, but if you were able to hold on, I thought the real estate market really settled down. And now you see it taking off. And now when you see all of these, what I call liquidity injections, all that means is the PPP plan, everybody sending out checks, $600 to everyone in the country. All those things create an inflation environment that will make property values go up, right? So if they put more money in the system, they can't put more land in the system. So if you put more money in the system and there's the same amount of land in the system, then the value of that land has to go up. It's just mathematical, okay? So the real estate allows you to balance off those risks that you have in the market. So for us, it's just working those three pillars. For me, it's working those three pillars, and making sure when I say compound interest, I can't have too much debt, because debt, I know, takes my compound interest the opposite way. All right. So I haven't talked about debt, but if you understand the concept of compound interest, you'll understand why I'm so debt adverse. All right. I'd rather drive a car till the wheels fall off. Sometimes Molly has to tell me, man, you making us look like we lose cases if you keep driving that car. You know, you got to get another car. And I'm like, no, man, I'm creating money. But now, so these things can't go too far. Don't
you
go
gotta
too
look
far.
like money if you want money.
Yeah. So at some point, I did have that happen to me. I pulled up to some function and the lawyer behind me, and he pulled up behind me, and I got out of my car. He got out of his car and he said, Rob, you look like you lose a lot of cases. So I had to hear that. So even though I talk about these three pillars and I talk about saving money, there is, you do have to balance. There is a balance there. But I try to look at those three pillars and invest, whether it's 401k. That's an important place to invest if you're working for a company, especially if they're going to company match. If they're going to give you free money, you've got to be in the 401k. And once you start on that path and you start making money, the biggest hurdle you'll have is managing taxes. And that's why 401k is important. All rich people do is manage taxes. Trust me, that's all they do. Once you get money, then you don't worry about making money anymore. Money starts just coming to you. And then you have to manage how much you're giving to the government. And so that's what you see when you see Trump, when he won't disclose his tax returns. That's what he's telling you. That's what he's really telling you, that, man, I've been mad. If y'all knew how I was managing my taxes, you all wouldn't even let me be president. But so he managing all the time. And that's what the rich do. So those are the three pillars of wealth accumulation that I have, and that's what I try to do. It's those three pillars. So I don't know if that's too long, Marty, but I'll sit up there.
No, you good, Robin, because actually you touched on all three of you guys kind of touched on the same topics in some form or fashion. One of the things that I want to put out there to you guys is what we're talking about here tonight is the power of economics and self-reliance, and the importance of that for our young folks to get in tune with that early on. Rob, you got in tune with it early on because you were fortunate to have a mentor that could put you in that direction. Calvin and Kedrick, I'm sure you guys, through your military background, that you kind of saw some things in a systematic way of wanting to get you where you are today. We know, based off of, we just talked about Garveyism before, you went deep into it, Kedrick. So we know that this concept of us being self-reliant and economics has been around for a long time, right? Yet here we are today. Here we are today where we still are having these discussions amongst our community. So really what I wanted to put out to you guys, what I wanted to ask you all is, what do you think is that bell cow that's going to change the paradigm of us as a people to start looking at this in terms of our economics and the power of our economics and us being self-reliant earlier on? Because I think that, like right now, I have young adult children, and a lot of us on this panel do. We would love to be able to just download this information that we have in our head to them to say what you think is important right now really isn't that important. You'll find out, when you hit 30, that it's not that important. What do you think is that messaging? How do you guys think that because it's, I'm asking this because this is what Black Man Lab is really about. We really want to get this information to the young folks. We really want to be able to change the paradigm of what their future will look like, so that then 30 years from now, they're not having the same conversation. So I'll put that out there, you guys. What do you think? Kedrick, starting with you.
Well, I have a quote here, because I had some other plan and then Maoli took me somewhere else, right? So I have a quote here from Dr. Amos Wilson, and he's the one who always, Garvey has been the inspiration, but Amos Wilson has always been the accountability teacher, because he's the one who's, the real, the true speaker, who says different things like, hey, we got all these black folks finishing business school. How come ain't no black businesses around here? And this quote, maybe I thought about this quote in line with Black Man Lab, which is, how different would our education be if we went to school to learn to create jobs for ourselves? What I think the difference maker is, those are the conversations like we're having here that we have to have with our children. So I believe my son and godson, Chioke and Charlton, are listening. And back when the pandemic started, back in April or so, I challenged them. I said, hey, we're all going to be at home. You guys are freshmen and sophomore in college. You know what's happening. You come up with your ideas and I'll come up with the money, and maybe we build something together. And that is the kind of thing that we really have to continue to push. We have to do a few things that maybe this is in line as well with my notes that I wrote before we came on. One is, we always say the struggle is where your feet are. And as Brother Bozeman said, that's where the business is too. So number one, we can just look outside of our door and see that our folks need something, and we need to encourage our children to be mindful and look outside, get off of these freaking games and say, well, the games, y'all had a good show on games, right? So if you're going to be on the creating side, make some money, okay. but you can't, if you hold up in your basement for 12 hours a day playing games, maybe not that. The second thing I had here was, we have to talk about coming together. Like your idea, my money, what I was just saying, my idea, your money. I'm in a couple of groups where we're pooling money from people who have worked, who have learned the hard way now in their 40s and 50s that this thing ain't for us. And then the last thing, I'm just going to riff off of Mowley's book, We Need You. And we need you as the next generation to really create our own opportunities. As I think about my career, I've mentored dozens, maybe hundreds of brothers and sisters over the last 30 years. I've helped them get ready for promotions, this, that. I've done probably 100 mock interviews with people. I've helped them get out of trouble, so that they didn't get fired or whatever. But you know what I couldn't do? I couldn't make a decision on any of that, right? I could just give them some guidance, and that has some value. But ultimately, it wasn't my business. I wasn't the decision maker. And we really need to become the decision makers of the next generation. So I think it just needs to be more of an ongoing discussion. Every time you meet somebody young and they're saying, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that," to talk about, have you thought about making money for yourself? Have you thought about, how you're really never going to get paid what you're worth on these jobs? The job I left today, I had 4 levels of management in a decade. I was very successful. They still didn't want to give me mine. I had multiple operations of the year, national operations of the year, multiple divisions. To my knowledge, the only person in a 50-year history of this company to do so. And I kept getting promoted because they couldn't deny me, but they didn't want to pay me. And so it's like, you're only going to get what you're worth if you create it yourself. And if you're in high school or you're in college, imagine you and your boys and your girls creating something together instead of y'all all going out and getting these minimum wage, and they're really minimum wage even with a college degree gig. So we got to just discuss it.
Hey, Kendrick, if I can just jump in.
Jump right in, brother.
Just because that one thing you just said there, I think is the message that every one of our young people needs to hear, which is, you're never going to get your worth, right, unless you go get it yourself. Because I very similar. Myself, Joe, we've been in corporate America, and we know, no matter how hard you push, no matter how many times you are promoted, even if they pay you the big bucks, right? Even if you are in that company, because I've been in a company where I did very well. But I know that if they could pay me that, guess what? Guess what? I'm not, it's nowhere near any of the money of the owners, right? So that right there is the message I think that we need to have a conversation around with all of our young folks. They need to have a good understanding of that. Well, let me ask you guys this as well. To piggyback off of that question. What would you say? So I'm 19 years old, 18, 19 years old. what would you say, hey man, this is the first thing that you should do to get yourself in a position where you are economically free and self-reliant? This is the first step that you should take. What do you guys think that will be? And Brother Foster, how about you?
For me, when you ask that question, man, at such a young age, I would say part of my success has been mentors.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know until you need to know it and you don't. And
Right.
so it's really about mentors, man. It is so amazing because I would say 10 years ago, my financial situation wasn't what it is right now. But I tell you this, I have mentors, man. I hunt a lot. I go hunting a lot. And, you know, some of my mentors are pretty wealthy brothers and some of them are not. But the whole reason I'm even in the land game is because I kept going to these hunting clubs, these hunting preserves, man, these nice cabins and stuff. And one of my mentors, man, he actually had made so much money that he actually opened Wall Street a couple of times. I mean, and you are a product of those 4 or 5 people, man, that you spend the most time with. So if they are complete idiots, you better believe you're gonna be the 5th. And if it's straight up, if you hang around people with money hang around people who have gone where you want to go. The problem with us as brothers a lot of times is, man, we are pioneers. We're trying to blaze trails. We're trying to blaze trails the first time ourselves and go into uncharted territories and navigate things that no one has ever navigated in our families before. Now you look on the other side, Uncle Joe did it. He's something lawyer. His son's been a lawyer. Now here comes grandson and he wants to be a lawyer. The farm is already made. All you got to do is go sit in his desk and make a pile of money. The thing with us is we have to learn to use those mentors. I said the second part is we have to break those generational curses. At some point, I looked at what my father had done and what he left me, and I wanted something different. I didn't want to take the time to struggle with alcohol. I didn't want to take the time to be out in the streets and try to get it right at 50. I didn't want to do all that. I wanted to have my stuff together. And one of the reasons that I did is because I had good, solid mentors and people that I allowed to pour into my life. And so that's a real big part of it. We all are successful Black men. There are some other young men around us. I do a lot of mentoring and providing that exposure, man. The one thing I needed coming from Southeast Georgia with 25,000 people, I just didn't know. I needed exposure. I needed exposure. I needed to know what the options were because I had tunnel vision so bad at 19 years old, man. I thought that, hey, going out here to the trailer factory and busting my knuckles for $13 an hour, I was doing pretty good. It wasn't until I got into the Marine Corps and I had this white captain pull me to the side and he said, hey, you know what, Lance Corporal Foster, instead of partying all weekend, man, won't you let me sit down and teach you about Morningstar and Quicken? And at 21 years old, man, I bought my first stocks and my first bonds and got into mutual funds. It was about exposure, staying spongy, somebody taking the time to mentor me and to take the time to teach me something different. So for us, man, I'm being mentored right now, even in my 40s, but I'm also mentoring. So you should be reaching up and you should also be reaching backwards at the same time. So that's my piece on it.
Awesome. That's great stuff right there. I think that, you know, the biggest piece that you could get is sit down with somebody that has what you want to get to, right? And just be a sponge. You said be spongy, Brother Calvin. I like that. Be spongy and take in that information. And then, Lord knows, if I knew at, 17, 18, 19, what I know now, I would be Warren Buffett. We'd be in a whole different conversation, right?
Yeah.
Brother Bosen, what about you, man? Anything you want to add to that?
Man, actually, Brother Foster took the words out of my mouth. At 19, I think the most important thing you can have is a mentor. Because you, like he said, you don't know what you don't know. And also, just like he said, you know, my dad used to tell me, your salary is going to be the average of your 5 closest friends. So he would say that your salary is going to be the average of your 5 closest friends. And so you got to look at the people around you, and you got to see what they're doing.
Come
and if
on,
you
bro. Come on, man. Yeah.
Come on.
Come
If
on.
you don't,
I'm
if
writing
you
that
don't
one
like
down.
that average, you better add some different people into your 5 closest friends. And so
I love it.
You know, luckily for me, my parents were both teachers. But as I told you, the guy who they moved into a neighborhood that they probably stretched them to the limit. But what it did was it put me next to other people who were doing different things, like a guy who was owning 2 McDonald's in the 80s and had a condo in Hilton Head as a black man in the 80s, right? And so it allowed me to have contact because I went to school with his daughter, right? And so now I've got contact with him. And now once I'm working for him and he says, okay, this guy's a pretty good worker, now he takes an interest in me, and the rest is history. But I learned so much about, you know, everything from him. And it's all about, for me, it's been, the mentoring has been such a blessing in my life. So I think you get a mentor, but what my concern always is, and this is even in my own household, my concern always is, does the child want to be mentored? Does the child want to receive what you really want to give the young person, the young man? You know, do they believe that they really need to listen? Do they believe when you tell them, read this book, will they really go and read it? You know, because we can tell them, we can tell them everything, but they, at some level, they have to take responsibility to, you know, to get online and read. I look at this whole thing with GameStop is very intriguing to me, because you got millennials really who understand what it means to short a stock. Right? Do you know what it, you know, for this whole GameStop phenomenon to work, you got to understand what it means to short a stock.
Right.
Do you know what it means to short? Are you willing to read enough to understand what it means to short a stock? Because once you understand shorting a stock, you can understand what they did last week. Right? And so even though we can help, but we've got to create an atmosphere where people and y'all young people really are hungry for that knowledge. And I think if they're hungry for the knowledge, I do think that there are those of us out here who are willing to give it to them, but they've got to put their part in as well. And you know, I'm not trying to.
Bozeman, let me unpack that a little bit, Bozeman, because you hit on the topic that I was just about to kind of ask about. Man, you brothers have dropped some nuggets tonight, like every single one of you. And the funny thing is, you each, like Marty said, each of you kind of talked about some similar things, but the one thing in common, and Ked, you started when you talked about the organization that you're involved with and your history and the history of the organization. And all of y'all talked about mentoring. You all touched on it in some form or fashion. And it's funny the way y'all say that, because one of the things, you know, I do a lot of mentoring with some, you know, at-risk youth. And one of the things that we tell them, and it's funny the way that y'all say it, because I've said it different ways and we've said it different ways, is if you have 5 friends that have been to jail, you're going to jail. If you have 5 friends that you surround yourself with that have been to jail, you going to jail. And it's just funny because it's a variation of what y'all have said, man. I love the positive version of what y'all said. So here's my question, and we're going to get into, Marty's going to close us with habits, rituals, and disciplines. But what I want to ask is, each of you all have touched on mentoring in some form. I really, man, because you have these young brothers and sisters and older brothers and sisters, listen, man, One thing when we were in the midst of everything last summer and everything, one thing Attorney Davis has always done a great job in is, hey, just be involved in something. You may not want to join my organization, but be involved in something, do something. So what I'm asking the three of y'all is, what you've spoken so much about mentoring, could you give me a tangible, an organization, a step, or what would you say? You got a young brother listening to you right now. What would you say? Hey, go be a part of this organization, or go talk to these men. What would you all say? And Kendrick, I want to start with you because you started us out and with some of that Marcus wisdom you dropped. What would you say to that?
So, given that people are in different parts of the country, the first thing I would do is, it's greatness internet age. You can literally just look for where Black men congregate. You might find, man, I live in this small town, and the only place where there are brothers is at the church and the barbershop. Start there. If there are formal organizations that you are aware of, show up and say, can I join you, brothers? It's as simple as that. So without naming any particular organization, I will tell you, when I think about someone who was a non-relative, so not my father or one of my uncles, I found a mentor in a barbershop, 12 years old. So, right? So it becomes exposing yourself and getting out of the house or finding these organizations. But I would start there. If you're in a particular city and you're aware of them, then you would do that. And ultimately, you want to go someplace, as to the point you made that Brother Mowley said, quoting or paraphrasing what Kwame Ture would say: organize, organize, organize. Surround yourself with people who are in some kind of organization, even if that organization is just about picking up cans to clean up the neighborhood.
Yep. Salute. Appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Brother Foster, what about you, good brother? You're on mute, my man. You're on mute.
My bad, bro.
There you go.
I would say, for me, I've been a part of my frat for several years. And one of the things we did, man, we had one of the frat brothers, his sister became a juvenile court judge. She's going on to be a superior court judge, but she became a judge here in Gwinnett County. And they came up with the idea of starting a mentoring program, at-risk mentoring program with the frat. And we made that happen. I gave that program 3 years of my life, man. It went from me. I will say in the mentoring part, I had to be really patient because the Marine in me wanted to come out, because these kids, in many cases, I'm like, I want to jack them up, because in many cases they were hostages. They were ordered by the court to come to me.
Yeah. Yep.
And they were going to be with me for 8 weeks, man. But I tell everybody, man, while you're mentoring, be patient, because a lot of the transformation that I saw in some of these boys, man, it was just amazing. Coming from court order to wanting to actually hang around, and graduating high school, we're seeing a lot of fruit from that now. I tell you, one of the stories that really touched my heart was I was in the barbershop the other day, and I was getting ready to get my hair cut, and I ran into one of my mentees, and his name was Mike, and he was hell bent on paying for my haircut. And the reason was because, man, when he came to the program, I noticed he would like eat up all my snacks. I had like donuts and biscuits or whatever in there and stuff in the morning and juice. And he would like eat up all my snacks, man. I'm like, what is going on with you? And they would be there for a long part of the day. When I get ready to take him home, his ride wouldn't show up half the time. I got to drive all the way across town back home. I'm like, Lord have mercy, I've been here all day with y'all. Now I got to drive you home. Then he would be hungry. So he would want to eat. And so I'm like, you know what? Can't send this kid hungry, man. So I was paying for that food out of my pocket. But that moment where he was like, I want to pay you back.
Yeah.
That really did something to me, man. Because I noticed that when I saw him, he lit up, and he was a thug. He smoked a lot of dope, and he was about that life. But when he saw me in that barbershop, man, I could actually see the child come back into his face.
Mm-hmm.
And he was happy, and he was happy to see me, and he actually hugged me in the barbershop, and he was determined that I was gonna pay, that he was gonna pay for my haircut, man. So just those programs, man, stay in them, because we just never know whose life we turned around.
Yep. Appreciate that, good brother. Thank you so much for that. Brother Bozeman, what about you, my man?
Man, I'm gonna answer that question with the joke.
All right, I'm here for it.
You got to have some entertainment. So, if y'all had heard the joke about when the $50 bill met the $1 bill, so the $50 bill, the $1 bill, they met, and the $1 bill said, "Hey man, how you been? What you been up to?" And the $50 bill said, "Man, I've been everywhere. I've been in the south of France. I was in the purse of the Kardashian. I went to Thailand. I've been to South Africa, and I made it back to the US. How you been?" $1 bill. And the $1 bill said, "Man, church, church, and more church." So, so the way I answer that question for me has been church, church, and more church. Because for me, I told you I was at a church. Everything, all of the mentors, a lot of the people who really have cared for me, people that I can look to and talk with, they've all come out of my church. So I would just answer that question and tell a young person, church, church, and more church.
That's
definitely respect that, good brother.
Hey, Rob, so you got all these things behind your name, man. Next we're gonna put comedian. You're gonna be doing opening up. Opening up.
Gotta have some fun.
That's great stuff. Look, brothers, man, we have had an awesome conversation tonight. And one of the things that we do every week, and we want to make sure that we are giving those that are listening in, is what are some of those habits, rituals, and disciplines that you guys do on a daily basis that help you to move forward, that help you to navigate this world that we live in. So if you could just really quick shoot through your habits, rituals, and disciplines that you do every day, we'd appreciate that. So brother Kedrick.
Plan the next day. That's the biggest thing. When I do it, my day is full. When I don't, anything can throw me off.
Gotcha. Awesome. Brother Calvin.
I would say emotional regulation, self-regulation. Control where your mind goes and fix your mind to what you want to do. Don't let the environment control your mind. You control your mind. Regardless of what it looks like, fix your mind a certain way.
Like that. Get your mind right. Rob, how about you, bro?
List. Making list. You make a list, and this is like what Brother Kendrick said. You make a list, and you have a blueprint about what you're doing the next day. You want to make a list. You don't want to get up. You want to be very efficient. I found that if I have a list, I can move through what I'm going to do so much faster than if I'm just kind of meandering through the day. Yeah. So having a plan for what you're going to accomplish the next day is so important to me. And using technology, using your phone, but making lists.
That's funny that you say that, Rob. I'm big on that too. So in my phone, I have a app that has lists in there. So I just put my list in there, and I constantly looking at it, trying to check off. And let me be clear: in my old phone, my phone that I had, my list and all my notes in completely crashed, and I lost all of it. I have been lost for the past 3 weeks. Has been driving me crazy because I can't get to my standard list and then my notes, man. It makes me nuts. So I've been trying to redo it, but I completely understand where you're coming from, man. Look, thank you guys so much for sharing. Thanks for so much for the gems that you all dropped. It's important that we are getting this information out for our communities, because at the end of the day, as we talk about economics and being self-reliant, it's really about us building our communities to lead the world, right? Because we've seen what happens when the wrong people are leading our world, right? We come from a place that is about community. As we talk about, Black History Month, really we should be talking about what we are as an African people. where we come from, what is in us from our gene pool, what it is for us to be about community and about taking care of this earth. And that's really, if we are doing this part right, if we are getting our economics together, if we are being self-reliant, then what we are doing is building our communities, which therefore is building the rest of the world and putting us in a much better place for the future. So thank you all for everything that you dropped today. Truly appreciate that. We close out every week with a tradition that was brought to us by, she's now an ancestor, in Jiri Al-Ghani, who was part of an organization known as Cobra here in Atlanta. And every week, whenever they closed out, we close out our session, we bring her back into the space to do what we call as a link in this chain. So if everybody can get your arms up like we are linking our arms together, just repeat after me. I am a link in this chain.
I am a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And it won't break here.
I am a link in this chain.
I am a link in this chain.
And it won't break here.
And
it won't break here.
We are links in this chain.
We are links in this chain.
And we won't break here.
And
we won't
break here.
Ashe.
Hey, brothers.
Thank you, brothers.
Thank you for the invitation, brothers.
Next week, we will have a special edition of the Lab. Our brother, Mauli Davis, has penned a book that is entitled We Need You. And we have a project going around his book. So we are going to have Mauli be our actual guest next week to fully discuss this important book, because it really is important. It's a great read for our young folks, and it's a great read for our grown folks too. So looking forward to that conversation. Looking forward to seeing everybody next week. So thank you all, and we love you.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
All right.
Peace and blessings.
I say, brothers.